Hello everyone, thank you for coming to this session dedicated to how we make a winning deep tech team for a deep tech startup. I'm Yves Gendreau, I'm startup project manager at Diagnostics, and I work also at Seminar Incubator here in Strasbourg as a public research product manager. And I will be the moderator of this session today. So all of this day we speak about what is a deep tech startup, how we can transform the science to reach the market and intellectual properties, how we can found this type of project and so on, but we don't speak about the team yet. Which is in fact very important because the team is one of the most criterion in the deep tech startups that is analyzed by the funds before investing in such a project. So we'll focus on this today, and with projects that come from the lab. There are only two options. The first one is the scientist behind the technology. They can take the lead and become the CEO. And the second option is to find a business profile and entrust him with the project. The first one can take more time and need a full engagement of the scientist and learn also new skills. Elena will detail this later. And the second choice can be very difficult to find the perfect profile. This is why at Diagnostics 3 years ago, we have created our own program which is called Team to Market that can help the scientists to find a business profile. And if you are interested with this program, it's a website where the business profile can find project and candidate to it. So if you are interested, you can check it online. It's teamtomarket.com. But with this short introduction, we are now moving on welcoming 3 CEO today. They will give us their feedbacks on their entrepreneurial journey and how they construct their team in their startups. So first of all, Elena, you're the first one. Thank you for coming a lot. Elena was the scientist behind the technology and decided to create her own startups. So thank you for coming, and can you detail your background, how you create your startups and the teams behind it?
Thank you very much for having me, and hello everyone. I'm Elena. I'm by background a psychologist, neuroscientist and PhD in clinical research. And I basically started off becoming a scientist for very selfish reasons. I used to be a migrainer, and migraine is actually the third most common of all diseases, but despite that, there's very little we can offer patients. We don't know why migraines are happening or really what you can do about them when they become very frequent. And when I moved through my psychology degree, my migraines actually became chronic, which means I was in pain at least 50, more like 70% of the time. And you can only use painkillers so often. So at least half of the months I was almost trapped in my room in a dark place and couldn't really do anything. And so I decided I want to go into neuroscience to maybe within my lifespan one day figure out more about what this debilitating disease is and what you can do about this. And so I changed into neuroscience and stumbled across something way earlier than I had ever imagined. And I took this technology or this idea into the PhD at the University of Hospital in Basel. They were courageous enough to let me try pilot experiments on something that was back then super risky, but it turned out to be working. And so I did my PhD in this space and wrote the first patent, and then I thought, well, now I'm just going to go to Novartis and I'll say, look, here, this is it. Can you please bring this on the market? And I asked Novartis and I asked Roche, and everyone was like, well, this is way too early, go home, no way. So then I decided I'm going to have to do this myself potentially, and I founded Keto Swiss knowing nothing about business. Nobody in my friend circle, family has ever done anything with business, so this was literally a jump in cold water. But I'm still around, or we are still around. We've now grown to like a one mad scientist to a team of 8, and great people, and yeah, and I guess the rest will follow in the questions or the discussion.
Thank you, Elena. The second CEO that we have is John Fulker, the CEO of Brighton Diagnostics. So thank you, John, to be present. John has a business profile and joined a public research team in the startup Brighton Diagnostics. So as Elena did, can you summarize your background and what was the Brighton Diagnostics adventure and the team behind it?
You hear me? Yeah, okay. So thank you for the invitations. Hello, everyone. So yes, I am John Volkey. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Brighton Diagnostics. So my background is a master's degree in marketing. I did my study in night classes, so I am more, I would say, a self-made man. So I had also 2 co-founders, which is the first one, Andrei Klimchenko, who is a research director of the CNRS. Andrei is in charge of the science for sure, so it's a CSO. And Andreas Reich is our associate professor, and he's in charge of the industrialization and the process. So, Brighton Diagnostics wants to be an alternative of the PCR, which is very famous currently since 2 years now. The goal is that with our technology, which is a unique and patented technology, you can get some different diagnoses, screening, and patient follow-up, especially for different applications like oncology and virology. So we started working before the company creation to work together on the oncology, because the SAT-Connectis made a very good valorization of the technology during 2 years now. And we have competed to the iLab concourse, and we won. Our program for oncology is to detect microRNA that are key to detect the cancer and to permit also to have a better follow-up of the patient. But with our technology, we have some advantages, key advantages, I would say, that we can maybe find the new or finding the microRNA keys, but that are not only published, but it is not validated. So why is it possible? Because our tests are very economical and easy to use, and it will permit us again with some partners like IRCAD to find these key biomarkers. The second step is, and already launched, is the virology. So we are currently working on some potential tests for the COVID and their variants, but it's not done yet, so we go step by step. Okay, and so you know the team, you know our strategy, and that's it now.
Thank you, John. Finally, we are welcoming Silvano Coletti, the CEO of Kelonia Applied Science. So thank you, many thanks for your time here. I hope the microphone works. So can you talk about your background and what is the story behind Kelonia AS and what are the services you propose?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So I guess to be the oldest here on stage, I think so, but just give me 1 hour and I will give you my story. No, perfect. I'm joking. 1 hour is too much. No, so by training, I'm a nuclear engineer. I studied at Harvard Business School with an MBA, and my first experience was probably similar to some of you in the university, because I started to be a student of a Nobel Prize, Ilya Prigogine, at the end of the 90s, working on thermodynamics of a nonlinear system. And at some point, was a Saturday night when I was not in a disco, but in front of one of the first computer, I suppose, available at home. So I invented an algorithm to characterize waste and byproducts to introduce a new cycle of production. And Nomura, the Bank of Japan, together with Oracle and IBM, invested in this company, becoming the company, the venture, one of the unicorn at that time, so valued some 100 millions of euro. And from there, from the sale of the IP, started Kelonia. Kelonia, you see the name is the pronounce is in Latin, and think about the turtle with a sense of protection. And we started working with initially with some startup in the energy sector, and we were around 2002, 2003. And in energy sector, we invested with some large corporation, developing projects from scratch. And for who of you is useful for finance, we applied some business model related to call put options. So basically, we were paid at the time of the turnkey project, so in place, so the planning running, so basically, and it was a renewable energy project. And thanks to this collaboration and partnership with some large corporation, I became, for the first time, chief executive officer of some large corporation, also listed at the stock market. Then in 2007, I go quick now, sorry. In 2007, okay. So the market changed. Probably you're too young, but changed for financial reason. Probably you remember the Lehman problem, and thanks to the relationship and friendship in US with Esther Dyson, that was one of the founder of 23andme.com, I started to work and invest with this genetic corporation that is from the Google Galaxia. And from then started my journey in life sciences that bring Kelonia to Basel, where now is headquartered. And we are basically working in life sciences, but also again in energy. After many years, we are a boutique with a core team of 15 people in Basel, but basically, you know, after COVID, we are on the cloud wherever the people need of us, working with top corporations around the world, and that's all. And I leave the rest to the other question.
Thank you, and thank you for the summary. We will now move on the Q&A part of the session. So we will maybe begin with Elena. So I have a question for you, going from the world of academics to the entrepreneurships and the business world. It's such an adventure, so new fields, new roles. How you manage this transition? How do you manage this transition, and what were the main difficulties you encountered, and how you contourned them?
That's a good question that maybe a lot of people have, wanting to potentially transition from research into business. I guess the first big problem is really, in this day and age, if you have a question and you know the question, you will very easily find somebody or somewhere Google the answer. But the biggest problem transitioning into a field where you don't have any experience with is actually not knowing the questions that you have to ask. So the unknown unknowns, that is, I think, the biggest thing when you transition into a field and you have no idea what a pitch deck even is or what needs to be in there or what a term sheet is or what all these business terms even mean. So that, I think, was for me one of the biggest things that I was sitting in these courses and I literally had no idea what people were talking about just because I didn't know the vocabulary. So the first thing to overcome this is that you just go to things like this today, here, get exposed to the vocabulary, look it up, learn it, and even better, find an advisor, somebody like these two, who's done it all before and can tell you where the threats are and where the unknowns are that you still need to solve. So getting an expert, an advisor, somebody who's done it before on your team, I think is essential. And I was very lucky to find that person very early on to guide me through everything that I didn't know yet. And I think otherwise, you can take a lot of things that you have from research and apply it to academia. For example, go to the journal club, volunteer to pitch that paper, even if it's just in front of your research group of 10 people. What you really need once you're in a startup is you need to pitch, you need to get rid of the stage fright, you need to be able to talk, because as a CEO, you're actually the chief salesperson all the time, and you'll realize, so that's something you need to do. Then some kind of business sense, I think that's maybe something that can be learned, but maybe something you also have to be born with a little bit. I guess that's something that is essential as well. And then what else? I mean, oh yeah, one thing that really is different in business to your research career, when you move up the ladder in research, you become more and more specialized. As a startup, that turns absolutely backwards. You're going to need to be a complete generalist because as a CEO, you need to understand just a little bit, just enough of all the things that are going on to be able to control and manage people that will then be the specialists for you. So this was also kind of going back to a PhD where I was the person knowing the detail about this one single little project that I was working on, and now I need to know about patents and HR and the research and all the different things, package design, regulations, all the different things that are going on, even marketing, that I was completely unaware of. So something else that is probably good is being able to jump in cold water, being brave and saying, I want to try this out. I'm just going to learn by doing, even though I may not actually understand what people are talking about yet. Next time you go, you understand a few words more and you become more proficient. Did I forget one of the 3 questions?
No, but you mentioned how to pitch. It's one of the skills you need to develop, for example, as a CEO. I think you are doing an MBA in parallel of, well, if you have finished it, I don't know.
I dropped out, I must admit. Oh. I did, then COVID hit, and then I just decided I'm too busy to do all this. Also, I started after I have been with Keto Swiss for 2 or something years, and I already knew quite a bit of the things that they were teaching, but I think one of the big things in an MBA is actually also network, and thanks for reminding me, that's something I completely forgot. When you come out of research, you may know a few colleagues that are on paper, but that's not going to save you. So when you go into business, from day one, go to things like this, talk to everyone, talk to the startups, the researchers, the investors, because you'll find later on in fundraising, and I'm not sure if you guys have a different experience, but it's more who you know than what you know. Finding the person who knows the answer to the question that you're looking for. Finding the person that can give you an introduction to the VC that you've been dreaming about. Or finding a startup that has been through the same issues that you're currently experiencing, who can help you and they're a few bit advanced. So network is essential, and when you're in research, you don't really have that much of a business network yet, but you can totally build it, but start today.
Okay, thank you.
And an MBA is a way of doing network and maybe learning some of the business terms. But I must admit, I dropped out because sitting in front of a laptop all day is not what an MBA is for, I guess, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and you learn in the field, exactly.
And now that you said it, I need to take it off LinkedIn.
Sorry.
It's official.
It's not. Okay, so thank you. And other skills that come into your mind, or it's you have?
Yeah, skills. I guess again, you can take some skills from research, as I already said, this basic presentation skill. I started learning that in my bachelor's in the journal club, just being forced to present a different journal in a different language every second week. That helps getting rid of the stage fright. I think you have to be somewhat outgoing, but you can also have a peer or a colleague that is outgoing and doing the pitching for you. I think you have to be some kind of, not too risk adverse, let's put it this way around. You have to be able to take some risks, jump into cold water, because a startup life is even more insecure than academia. But coming from academia, you're probably used to not knowing if you have a salary in 2 years' time, because that's absolutely normal. So maybe that's an advantage from a researcher going into a startup life. Other skills, networking. But networking, you don't have to be super outgoing. You can just meet that one person and just befriend them, and then meet a different person on a different networking event. It doesn't have to be you talking to 100 people. And that's another thing you can take away with. If you go to an event like this and it's completely intimidating, set yourself a goal that is completely realistic. Like, I will have talked to 3 people and get their business cards by the end of the day. And the next meeting, you maybe make it 4. And you can grow your ability to network. And networking is always helpful if you have, or you show a genuine interest in the person. And the last thing that I would maybe say in terms of skills, what helped me tremendously is also, even if you're at the start, if you give and you just give whatever you know to the people that come around, you're much more likely to, the next time you need help, also receive some help as well. Building trust, you need to be able to build that trust, and that trust takes some time, but the more you're willing to give your time and advice and what you've learned, the more you'll be likely to receive whatever you need later on.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I will move with John. John, you have an experience in business in several companies, but how was the integration into an academic research team, and what are the advice that you can give us?
I would say good, but not easy in terms, because we come from totally different universe. So I spent a lot of time to understand who they are, so my co-founders, what they do, how is their daily management in terms of university, mindset, and so on. And then we spent time together to help me to understand the science, because I had a certain vision with this technology, what we can do with, and I wanted to be sure. And after that, I use the method, which is very simple. It is people-centric. People-centric is putting the right person in the right place, and then it will avoid any problems in the future, because we will be aligned. So it is very simple what I say, but it's very important.
Okay, thank you. And first, on the beginning of the collaboration, how to establish the dialogue. You don't use necessarily the same language, the business language, the research language, and how to be sure to be on the same wavelength.
So after maybe 2 weeks, I proposed to Satconnectus Stud and to the co-founders a business model, okay? And for this business model, I propose a certain vision and the mission of the company. This is the first point, because you know, when you have a company, sometimes you can have some troubles. I would say this is also company life, because at the beginning, this is always everything is well, it's pretty, okay, we will do that's perfect, but that's not company life. So you need that. That's the first point. And the second point is communication, communication, and communication. Not over-communicate, but just today, okay, I have seen that, do you agree, yes or not, why, and so on. This is very simple again, but it's very important.
Okay, thank you. So Silvano, with your experience in creating several companies from public research, what do you make some teams with only scientists, academics? Do you mix profile? Do you do both, or it's better to do the first choice or the second choice? Can you share your experience in this?
Oh, yeah, thank you for this question. So, first of all, when you have a company, so at any stage in which you are, so it's all about people. So, and first of all, the chief executive officer, that seems to be so the the quota in the company. It's just the people that it's paid for their responsibilities. And the other people are the intelligent people that really work every day. So that's what I understood in probably 20 years of operation. So, and the kind of team that generally I select in the different ventures, it's, of course, today it's multidisciplinary and comes from academia, but also with experiences in business, in management. So the mix today is extremely important. And this is due to the fact, as I said before, about the responsibilities. So I have the first two responsibilities I have are upwards and downwards. Upwards are versus the people in the floor upstairs. So the board of directors, the shareholders that want to be sure that I come back at the end of the year with some profit. The down is the team where I have take every day the responsibilities to allocate the resources or how to allocate the resources. So for doing that, I need colleagues with me that understand science, but understand also the business management. So, and this is the first assumption that every future entrepreneur needs to take in mind. Then, as I said, so it's all again, all about people. And if you want, I can say to you 3 pillars on which every venture is based. That is the strategy, the strategy, the systems, and the culture. So when you talk about the strategy and the systems, of course, again, you have in mind the engineers, the financials, professional, etc., etc. So you have in mind equipment, protocols, systems, and all of this. But when you go to the culture, so this is the main pillar that I see in the company. Because there you need people that independently from the deep knowledge that I hope they have, and generally, I'm sorry if I say that too strong, but the deep knowledge sometimes you can buy on the market. So you can take the best people in the world if you have the best venture with the investors. But in any case, so the culture is extremely important because you want with you people that are so smart to skip any problem, any challenge that eventually or for sure you will meet during the lifetime of your company at any stage, from the deep valley to the Death Valley to the commercialization up to the initial public offering, if you want.
Okay, thank you. And you already answered another question, which is the weight of the team in the deep tech startup, but you already say it's very important. And we can continue with a question for all of you. So what are the points on which it's necessary to pay attention, to be vigilant in the structuring of a team? Maybe.
May I go first?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a few mistakes I make that I can pass on, I suppose. One is, it's very natural if you are starting a startup that you ask your immediate good friends around you to maybe become co-founders or go into the venture with you. But that can have some dangers. You may know them really well, but you may never have worked with them. So I know from my experience, I know that this didn't work out in the end, and it was just with different expectations or no time or different priorities. Anyway, it can endanger a friendship if you have to kick somebody that is your friend out of the business because it actually doesn't work. And maybe you then kick them out way later than you should have kicked them out because of the personal relationship. So that's one, I think, choose your co-founders wisely and maybe do a transition period. And that was, in my case, we said we do this for 6 months. and then we found the company. Maybe work with them before you actually give them shares on paper, or before you give each other shares on paper, and see how it actually works working together, under stress, under pressure, in areas you've never been active in before. The other thing is, you greatly mentioned that you want the best person for the job, but I'm going to argue that maybe I would rather have the second person for the job, but then a person that I can trust and that has my back, whatever happens, a person that I can respect personally, and that I know if things go down, they will fight for this, right? So I think I would make a compromise to not have the best person for the job from a substance of matter expertise, but also have that personal fit, which I think is very important for creating the company culture, because it's that first 5, 10 people that you choose for your startup that will determine how the next hundreds of employees will work like and what they will be like. So it's essential that you are, in terms of the company culture, and the first 5 people, that you have common goals and values, so that the employees that come after you will have similar traits or personality traits and will form the company culture that you want for your venture. Otherwise, you're looking for people, I still think maybe it's not your best friend you should maybe choose, but if you are looking for somebody, tell everyone. Because I still think network is very valuable. So you look for a commercialization officer, the more you spread this, maybe somebody knows somebody who can already vouch for that person who's looking for a similar job.
Okay, perfect, thank you. John, Silvano?
Yes, so maybe only two sentences. The first sentence, that you have to look if you are compatible in terms of human. This is the first point. And the second point, if you can have I would say a crash test. For example, we had the iLab competitions. You know, when you have stress, the people are not the same. So if you can have a crash test before get married, it will be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I like the analogy. Silvano, you want?
Yeah, I think that I have to agree with my colleagues, of course, on all the topic covered. So what I can add is that generally when we are in a phase of team building, so we want to work with people that are collaborative and at the same time competitive. That's what we are looking for. And as I said before, of course, the crash test is essential. So because, of course, again, so you know, yesterday was COVID, today is a war, tomorrow we don't know. So if we want to remain on the market, we have to be prepared to something that probably is unbelievable today. And humility is another thing that we look in the people that we want with us in Colonia or in the ventures where we are working or we are investing. So we want to be sure that the people are prepared to accept also, how can I say, comment, recommendation, and so on. So we want people that are open-minded, really, in any sense.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Can I add one
Yes,
more thing? I just realized that I said look for people that are like you or that you can really work with. What I didn't mean to say is look like somebody like you. So you really want people that share the same values or the same morals maybe, but you also want somebody who is different from your background in the sense that they can challenge you on things rather than just saying yes all the time. So diversity is key, but the same values doesn't mean that they can come from diverse backgrounds and have different opinions with you sometimes. Just wanted to add that so it isn't a misunderstanding.
To challenge your way. Okay, thank you. Another questions, maybe the final one. How do you manage the strategic orientation of your company between the strong scientific academic anchoring and the market needs? You can maybe
okay, so it's a duality between business and scientists, but as a young company, the business should adapt its strategy to the science. So, but the business as a company, you need to have incomes, so revenue sources. So you have, from the beginning, to think about short-term revenue sources, medium and long-term. So you had no choice than to think about these three possibilities. But then you have to reach some scientific gaps. So finally, the roadmap, the R&D roadmap is the key to be able to define some milestones and then to start some business activities. But again, it's a duality, but the core is the science.
I can add to this. For me, it's really hard. We now have to make that transition somehow. And as a scientist, I can basically judge who's good at that job in the science field, and maybe in surrounding fields I can still somewhat make up if a CV is good or not. But when it comes to a chief commercialization officer, I have to completely rely on other people telling me how good these people are. So in terms of interview and shifting the team from a science team to a commercialization team and maybe a finance officer, where I can't even ask one sensible question that would channel this person, it is a bit more difficult, and we're still figuring out. We have advisors, we have senior team members that can help, but I'm just wanting to put out there that it is a difficult question, and we haven't completely solved it yet.
Sirena?
Yeah, I think that probably it's important to say that, how can I say, the venture is like a person. So, and as a person, you have to imagine that we probably, or you probably became oldest and the oldest. And in every age, there is a specific, how can I say, way of doing and a different knowledge that you need. So that means that you have not to think in a company that the chief executive is the same from the founding to the end, and the same for the other people involved in the project or in the venture. So, and this to agree with also with what was said, that again, so you have to be, how can I say, aligned with the lifetime of your company. Then, yeah, that's this is yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have only 5 minutes left. Maybe if you three can give to the audience 2 or 3 take-home messages on advice, if you can summary what the 2 or 3 main points it's best to check it when you found the team. Maybe if you want to begin.
I have 2 messages. So the first one, don't fall in love in your project. Be just focused on facts. The facts are coming from the field, so the customer voice. You can have a wonderful technology. If there are no customers, there is no company. So that's the first point. And the second point, sorry, is as a future CEO or leaders, it's like playing with the puzzles, but the pieces are not only your employees, the co-founders, the CEO, and so on. It's the full network. So suppliers, customers, bank, insurance, whatever. So you have to involve each of them to be sure that your project will be a success. Thank you.
Yeah, what I can say just is follow Kelonia, call us if you have some problem during the startup phase or during the growth of your company. No, I'm joking, but it's quite true, because I didn't say what we are doing in the market. So we are channeling science into real-life applications. So basically, we support the academia and the scientists and transforming probably, or we hope, a user-inspired scientific discovery in a real-life application. So I think that if you have a good idea, so the word is done of people with money and people with idea. If you have a good idea, I'm sure that you will find the money. So it's not a problem. So probably you have to design a very good roadmap from the beginning, hopefully fitting the expectation of the future stakeholders. That's extremely important.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for me, I would probably say when you look for the team, test it out first. So maybe have an internship, have a cliff period before you give away any company equity. Try it out. It's good for both sides on the table. Don't feel selfish because you say we need to test whether we can work together first. Second, I would probably say look for expertise, but also company fit. We've heard this a couple of times that the personal fit must be there and somebody willing, working in a startup experience is different than a corporate job, so somebody needs to want to do that as well. And then third, I think it's important, get somebody early on who can help you with all the unknowns, and this does not need to be somebody in the founding team, but somebody you can call who can watch over you and make sure that you don't make all the mistakes other people have made by yourself, but maybe learn from somebody who's been there.
Okay, thank you very much for these advices, and I will thank again the three speakers. So thank you, Elena, thank you, John,
Thank you.
and thank you, Silvano. I hope this session gives you some answer about the team creation and the beginning of a startup, and I wish you a good day.